Hello, everybody. Welcome to the ABCs of Preschool podcast. I am really excited because today is my first episode to interview someone, and I have the most amazing, beautiful, inside and out Angela. She is my sister in love. I don't like the word sister in law, but more importantly, she is like my sister. When did we meet?
I think around 11 years old. Yeah.
You were 11.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think I was 13, and we met through a mutual friend. We went to Great America
Yep.
in Santa Clara, California, and I think I found out your birthday.
Yep.
How'd it go? Like,
Yep. I was purchasing something that had my birthday on it, and you saw my birthday and you realized that I had the exact same birthday as your brother.
That is right. Like, same year,
Yep.
same day, and
Yep.
everything, right? And
Yes.
so at 11, I mean, here I am, 13 years old, and I'm telling my new 11-year-old friend,
you have to meet my brother. You were matchmaking back then.
I was matchmaking back then, and so you guys did. I don't even know how. How did you guys meet?
A picnic, Memorial Day picnic.
At church.
Yep.
At church.
Yes.
Right. So you want to just tell a quick background of how, like, your love story, maybe? Like,
yeah.
Quick, and then we'll go into everything.
Okay, yeah, sure. So we met at a Memorial Day picnic. It was a church thing, and it was a hot day, and your brother met me by throwing a bucket of water all over me. And we joke and say it was love at first sight. He still remembers what I was wearing at 11. Yes, he does. Remembers how my hair was. We dated all through high school. And then broke up at 20 years old, and it was heartbreaking to everyone. And then it took 10 years of us being apart, learning a lot about ourselves and growing, and also having a lot of hardship during that time before we reunited at 30 years old.
Yes, I love their love story. Maybe one day we'll do another episode with Josh here. But I think your love story is such a testament. Like, it's actually really true love. And the time gap was really hard for all of us. I had photos of Angela and Josh in my house in picture frames the entire time. Like, I could not take, I couldn't remove you from my life, even though we weren't talking at the time. We didn't talk for a really long time. And I got married, you had a child, my brother you had a son, my brother had a son. But I would always say, I think they're going to get back together. And my mom,
she would get mad.
She would get really mad at me, like, you need to stop that. But look at that. Yeah, you guys found each other again. It's really beautiful. So Angela is such an inspiration, like, in so many ways. I think actually you and Josh, through this process that we're going to talk about, really, I was so in awe of watching you guys walk this very extremely difficult journey together. And it really showed me the power of love. And I'll be honest, I wanted that kind of love in my life when I watched you guys go through this. So you have been just so instrumental in my life. So I want to say first,
you're gonna already make me cry.
First of all, I want to say thank you for being here. Thank you for being vulnerable. This is not an easy subject, and so I think that if you just want to share your story, you can say it best, because I think there's a lot of moms out there right now that may come across this podcast that have been, maybe are facing this, knowing that they may have to walk this path, like you knew for a long time that you were walking this path. And then some may just be leaving the hospital. So
Okay. Well, first of all, thank you for having me and allowing me to talk about this, because just talking about it is healing. And that's the first message I want all of the mothers and fathers out there to know, that you should talk about these things, and it's healing to do that. And so a little bit of background, like she said, her brother and I, we were high school sweethearts. And I think it's important to say that when we were dating in high school, we always dreamed that we would have a little girl. And we'd always say a little girl that looked just like me, like had darker features, and but blue eyes like my husband. And it was just the dream. We knew we'd have multiple children if we married young, but that was one of our dreams. And so when we got married at 30, I did have fertility issues. So that's another another difficult thing that women go through. Even though I'd already had a child, a son, but I got pregnant about 5 years into our marriage with our son. His name is Cash. And then it was the nurses kind of joke and say that pregnancy kind of kicked my body into gear. Because after having Cash, I was pregnant pregnant within 3 months of having him. And so I was a little overwhelmed by that, but we were both excited. And the first appointment that I had, I listened to the heartbeat. It was really exciting. It seemed like there were no issues. And then because of my age, being over 35, I opted to take some of those additional tests. And in those additional tests, there was some concerns. And so after meeting with the doctor and having some additional blood work, and because of how far along I was, they decided that I could have an amniocentesis without risking my baby dying, because there is always a risk of that during an amniocentesis.
How far along were you around this time? I feel like you were pretty far along through all this process.
I was. I think around the time of the amniocentesis, I was already around 17 weeks. And that's important because they were also dealing with, if there was something and I wanted to terminate the pregnancy, we had to move quickly. And that is obviously a part of my story. So they moved very quickly. So from Thanksgiving to before Christmas, they were able to get me in to see a specialist. And during that appointment, they did the amniocentesis, but they also took an in-depth ultrasound, and they saw that my baby, who was a little girl, first girl, because my husband and I each had a son already, and then we had a son together, that she had some pretty severe heart issues. And at that point, they did offer, without the results of the amniocentesis, to terminate the pregnancy. And I felt like I was hers and she was mine, and I didn't want to move forward with that. So we waited. I think that was in early December, and they said the results of the amniocentesis were going to take quite some time, but that they were going to try to get the results in before Christmas. So I actually came to your parents' house for Christmas. It was,
I remember that.
Yeah, like a few days before Christmas, your mom said, "Why don't you just get away? I'll spoil you. And then if you get the results, you'll be here with us."
Right. And I remember that time. And I don't know if as a family we did it right, because it was so like walking on eggshells. We didn't know, right? Like normal pregnancies, we talk about you know what I mean?
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
The baby. And I just remember feeling like it was such like we just, no one knew what was going to happen kind of time.
Right.
And so I don't know if we handled it right or wrong, or I don't know. I look back and think, I don't know if we we did the right things,
Right.
at that time.
Well, and that's the thing. No one ever knows how to navigate a situation like that. Like, is this baby going to survive? Do we celebrate the baby's life while they're while the mother is pregnant? And it's a difficult situation. So Christmas came and I didn't get any phone call. And so we went home, and it was 2 days later, December 27th of 2016, that I received a phone call. I missed the call. It was a voicemail, and the caseworker that I was working with said in the voicemail that she needed to talk to me because my baby had not one but two chromosomal issues.
Before we sat down, even we were just talking. Like, I literally asked Angela this morning at 6:30 in the morning if you would come chat. And even as you sat down, you said you still have that voicemail.
I do, yes. And I still listen to it every year. We switched phone carriers earlier this year, and we almost didn't do it because I thought I was going to lose the voicemail. I didn't, surprisingly, because they told me I was going to. But yeah, I do. I still listen to it every year.
When do you guys
it was hard. And it's really strange to explain. But I felt like we were chosen for this road. And there's several reasons why I think we were chosen, but at the time I didn't understand it. And this, again, is going to sound super weird because I know a lot of people don't experience this, but I definitely felt a sense of peace. I didn't know if she was going to survive. One of her results was something that children can live with. And one of them is considered lethal. And I've since found out they don't know enough about it to know how lethal it is, but because most babies die before, women usually don't get to 20 weeks with that, with a baby with that sort of diagnosis.
You guys, which as a mom who's carried babies full term, that choice you guys chose with all these diagnoses that you were going to keep moving along.
Yeah.
Why did you make that choice? You said because earlier, but can you expand? Like, that's such a powerful choice to make.
Yeah.
And I think it's such a brave choice in so many ways because you're stepping every single day in faith and in love with her.
Yeah.
Right. And like allowing her, like her timeline, not yours.
Right.
No, I don't know if you want to expand on that or you want to
keep
going, but looking into your guys' this diagnosis and this path that you were about to walk, I was in awe. It was really in awe of you guys and your strength.
Yeah, thank you. It's a difficult decision. And it was brought up multiple times. We were guided to terminate the pregnancy. And I just couldn't do it. I said it a few minutes ago. I'll say it again. I was hers and she was mine. And I loved her and I still love her just like I loved, or just like I love all of my children. I have 4 living children, and a stepson, and I love all of them just as equally as I love her. And there's not a day that goes by that I don't love her. And they're just like if I had been told she had Down syndrome, I wouldn't have terminated the pregnancy. This is my personal decision. And I thought if there's a chance that she could survive, then I'm going to give her that chance. Who am I to take that away from her? And so I made the decision to continue on with the pregnancy, and I was really blessed because my husband was in full support of that decision. And I remember one time I had an amazing, I want to say that I had an amazing OBGYN, but she was very like cut and dry. I had her for my pregnancy before as well. And I remember her saying, if Angela, are you sure you want to continue with the pregnancy? Because she was thinking about the emotional aspects of it, and she was also concerned on what it might do to my body. And I said yes, and she said, if you are, she was meaning well, if you are praying for a miracle, the miracle is that she will live to full term. That will be a miracle. And because she is not going to survive. And I looked at her and I said, then I guess I'm praying that she makes it to full term.
I don't think I've heard that part of it. Wow.
Yeah.
And
she did. So I continued on with the pregnancy. There are some women who have issues with carrying. So my daughter had triploidy, which is very rare. Most people haven't heard of it. And a lot of women that carry triploidy babies end up having like high blood pressure and preeclampsia. And so that was a risk. Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. I lost my train of thought. That was a risk. And so anyways, we just continued on with pregnancy. I was closely monitored. And my daughter, Havannah, was also closely monitored. And it was very interesting. Once I got to the point of being with a specialist, so my care was taken over by a OBGYN specialist, but also by a perinatologist. And the perinatologist specializes in these really rare births. And I remember the first phone call I had with the perinatologist actually thanked me for continuing on with my pregnancy. Yeah, it was really cool. And then he shared with me how his mom had experienced a loss when he was a little boy. He was about 7 or 8 years old, but it had impacted his life so much that he ended up becoming a perinatologist. Yeah, it was really, really cool. Yeah. So kind of fast forwarding, the pregnancy was for the most part uneventful. It was really hard going to every appointment because I didn't know if that would be the appointment where I wouldn't hear a heartbeat. And so for those of you moms, and you know this as well, for those of you moms who have lost a baby even early on in pregnancy, when you hear there is no heartbeat, it's heartbreaking. And I had a lot of fear with that. But again, I knew that I was making the right decision by continuing on. So we decided after, closely tracking my care, that they wanted to induce me so that they would have all the proper people at the appointment. At the hospital.
You were, how many weeks were you?
So I asked if I could make it to full term, which my babies always come early.
Always early.
Yes. So full term is technically considered 37 to 40 weeks. And so since I have a history of all the babies coming early, they asked, are you willing to let us induce you exactly at 37 weeks? And so I agreed. and it was right after. So Easter was that weekend, and then on the Tuesday morning, I was to be induced. Tuesday after Easter.
What steps did you guys start to take prep? I don't know if you can ever fully prep.
Yeah.
For
it's
moments and in that specific.
Yeah, well, it's hard. I work full time, and I had to tell my work what was going on, and so that obviously happened. But I had been in a support group, and they had given a lot of input about guidelines for family, because we didn't know if we would have her for any time at all, or a minute, an hour, days. And so some of the things that they had recommended was designating someone close to you to take pictures and capture that. And so you were actually the person who did that. And yeah, thank you. It was an honor for us too. And then just some, my mother-in-law, your mom is an example, would want to know all of the details, which I understand that's how she processed things. But one of the things that people had gave feedback on was you don't want, in the moment, you don't want a bunch of medical questions. You just want to enjoy the time that you have with your baby. And so I don't know if you remember, but we sent out a text to my family and Josh's side of the family with some guidelines, like please don't ask us about medical questions at the time, and it was just pretty basic. We'll let you know when we're ready for you in the room. The exception was you and I think my mom.
Which I think on the receiving end of that,
Mhm.
you guys did that so respectfully, and all of us absolutely wanted to honor.
Yes,
every
everyone was
single
amazing.
wish
Yeah.
that you guys needed to go through this journey. We wanted to love you, support you, and however that looked for you guys was what we were going to do.
Yeah. So it was amazing, because Josh obviously has a sister and I have a brother. And so we invited, and my brother is married, has a wife. So we invited our both sets of parents and our siblings, and my brother's wife, to be with us. You weren't married at the time.
I was not married at the time, and that was why through that process.
Yeah. So we invited everyone to be there. And that in itself was incredible. You all showed up, you stayed for hours. But kind of taking even a step back, 2 days before, so on Easter, I think, I started feeling really uneasy about being induced. And I don't even know if I've shared this with you. I think maybe it was only Josh that I shared with. Like I had said, I want her to come when she's ready, and I'm inducing her. And I know people get induced all the time. So like, I don't want people to think I think that's bad at all. It was just like this. I had this. Yeah. Yes.
And you're really good with following.
Yeah.
Those feelings.
So I had a final phone conversation. I think it was on Monday, and I was just like, I don't know if I want to do this. And my care team was incredible and was like, if you don't want to do it, even tomorrow morning, you just let us know. And so I said, okay. And I went to bed, and I woke up that morning and I was bleeding. Yeah. And so I knew that it was time.
I mean, even in that, like your miracle.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Your miracle of going into labor.
Yeah. Yeah.
Beautiful,
yeah.
So let's talk about you're heading into the hospital.
Mm-hmm.
It's very different.
Yeah.
Because even your room, I want
to
say, was a special room.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Like, I even noticed, it's even hard for me to talk. Like they had, I think the way that the hospital handled it was just very beautiful, very honoring of that space.
Yeah.
But there with the red rose
Yes.
on your door,
Uh-huh.
and your room was just like farther away from other rooms.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah. It was an incredible experience. Again, my care team was amazing. And the red rose symbolized potential loss. And they put me in a room separate from the other rooms so that I wouldn't hear other babies cry. And in fact, it was like, I don't know if soundproofed is the right word, but at the hospital where I delivered, they have a little music that goes on every time a baby is delivered, and they were able to shut it off from that room. So prior to arriving at the hospital, we had, obviously several appointments. And during one of those appointments, they needed to make sure I understood what would happen if my daughter survived. And I had to acknowledge before even going into the hospital that if my daughter survived, no heroic acts would be performed. So if she was breathing, and she needed a little help, I had to agree that they would not help her breathe because in their minds, she wasn't a viable life. So it was really hard to hear that for me. I think that was the thing that bothered me the most. But I did agree to it. So the day of the hospital, everyone got there, and we went in to the hospital, and Josh hadn't eaten. I don't know if you remember, but you took him to go eat.
Yeah, I did.
Yeah.
Had a rib. I remember
yes.
exactly
yes. So while he was gone, my care team came in, and my mom was with me. And I remember it was incredible. There were like 8 people in the rooms. They wanted me to be introduced to everyone. And so like a special doctor for Havana, a special doctor for me, a special NICU nurse, the nurse that was going to care for me. There were other people too. It was just a room full of people. And so at that appointment, they wanted to make sure that I understood the process. And so I knew the drill. And so I said, and he said, can you verbalize what's going to happen today? So I explained, I understand. Oh, by the way, I did end up needing to be induced because my labor wasn't progressing quick enough. So I explained, if my labor doesn't progress, you're going to give me something. And if she survives, I understand there will be no heroic acts. And so he let me finish my spiel. And I still remember he put his hand on my hand and he said, "You are absolutely right. But we are so amazed by you and your daughter that we have changed the plan." And it was really special to me that they decided that if she survived, they would perform any heroic acts needed to help her survive.
Yeah, I remember when we got back, you were sharing that. And so we actually went into the mindset of wow, there's really a possibility.
Yeah.
When I know they put the what's the heartbeat monitor,
the fetal monitor.
Right when you got there, or like during that appointment, did they put that on? So they took it off. They put it on.
Yeah.
And they took it off.
It was really hard, and I actually think that's one of my only regrets. They said that I could listen to her heartbeat because they needed to hear it. They asked me if I wanted to hear it. I said yes. And she actually asked me if I wanted to record it. Yeah. And I don't know why I felt embarrassed, which is so weird because she's the one who offered it. And so I didn't do it. And I wish I would have recorded her heartbeat. But when they listened to the heartbeat and the care team came after, she was like, oh my goodness, like her heart is so strong. Her heart rate is exactly like a full-term baby. So we were really hopeful that, that she was going to be okay. Yeah.
And I don't know how many hours were you laboring.
It was a really long time. So I came in, I think I went in around 10 in the morning, and it was 11 o'clock, exactly 11 o'clock at night when she came. Yeah. I was in a lot of pain. I decided it was recommended that I have an epidural because they didn't want me to be going through all of that pain. And then they knew there was a high probability that she would not survive. So I was laboring, and Josh had music on, and he was reading. And I told him, he was actually reading the Bible. And I told him that I was in a lot of pain and something wasn't right in terms of the epidural. And so he said, "Do you want me to come? Do you want me to go get the nurse?" And I said, "No, I'm okay." I was exhausted. Um, and it just so happened that the nurse came in right then. And everybody else was waiting in the waiting room.
Yeah, I wasn't even in the room.
Yeah. And because you guys knew it was going to be a long process. And she said, "I want to check and see how far along you are, to see how far I had dilated." And I was laying on my side. I rolled over on my back. She opened my legs, and then Havannah slid out.
I remember running
Yeah.
down after they closed. And I remember walking in. I think the biggest thing I remember is the quiet.
Yeah.
Quietness of the room
Yeah.
and the quietness all the staff, the doctors, the team,
Yeah.
moved in respect. It was a very sacred
Yeah.
moment. I felt
Yeah.
very spiritual.
Yeah, definitely. It was very peaceful, even in the hour before. It was sacred. And the nurse that was taking care of me was actually off her shift, and she asked if she could stay with me to care for me. And the first thing I asked was, "Is she alive?" And I have since found out that she did take a breath. Yeah, she took one breath. Yeah. And that's why the nurse wasn't sure if she was alive. So the nurse said, "I'm not sure. I need to get the doctor." Called for the doctor, and then immediately started working on her. Yeah. But she took one breath and
She
then
was
passed away.
a fighter.
She was.
Like
Yes.
you, like determined fighter, like to the very
And
end.
yeah,
But she lived her journey.
she did.
Like she is such a gift.
Yeah.
And watching you and Josh too through that whole labor, the whole day, your kindness and love for the staff, for the team, even though you guys were going through some of your darkest moments.
Yeah.
You still extended love and grace to everybody else. You guys are so strong, and she's beautiful. She was beautiful.
Yeah.
Hold her.
Yeah. It was really an incredible experience. And I want everyone to know, if you are in this sort of situation, a lot of people are afraid a lot of people terminate the pregnancy just because they're afraid. Like, "I'm not going to be able to handle it." And I get that. But it was so beautiful, and there's nothing about that I regret. Um, Everyone got to say hello and goodbye to her all on the same day, and everyone in the family got to hold her, and she was beautiful. And uh she truly was a gift. And yeah.
And then I know we all left,
Mm-hmm.
and then you and Josh
Yeah.
had to have
Yeah.
a battle with her, right?
Yeah. And I think this is the part where I get really emotional. I've gotten so much better over the years. But after she left, I held her. And it's really interesting. If you look at some of the pictures that you took, we were smiling. And I remember Josh saying one time, like, that's embarrassing. My daughter just died and I was smiling. But we were so happy to have met her. And she made such an impact on our lives. It was like you did it. You did it, princess, and we were just happy in that. But after everyone left, it was just the three of us, and it was like Josh wanted to do everything that he knew he'd never be able to do. And so he sang to her as he held her and he danced with her. And the hardest thing was having to call the nurse and tell the nurse when I was ready for her to leave. I was ready for her to be taken away, because the reality is that I was never ready for her to be taken away. And so that was hard. But I knew that it was time. And we said our goodbyes to her. And we have our pictures. And her spirit lives on. She's changed us. She's changed all of us.
Agree. Thank you, Havannah. For gracing us with your beautiful life.
Yeah.
And Angela, truly, you are so strong. I can never imagine what the things that you feel. And, I just can't say that I understand. I've never been fully in the shoes. Just like as all of us as humans, we are all walking this path of life on our own journeys, facing our own trauma and struggle and hardship. And I think just moving forward through life, it's just that love and grace that we should be offering everybody that comes in contact with us, because we just don't know what's going on behind the doors. And I want to say thank you so much for sharing your story, because I think there's so many people that suffer and grieve in the quiet, in the silence. And I know for me, healing has really been happening at the top through sharing. So I just want to say thank you for sharing and Havannah and Josh's story. I don't know if there's anything you want to say to close this, but that was, I love you.
I love you too.
And
yeah. I do want to just say a couple more things. If you're out there and you've experienced any sort of loss, it doesn't matter if you were 8 weeks pregnant, 16 weeks pregnant, you had a stillborn like I did, or a baby that you lost a few months after having. There is shame that is attached to that. And I want you to know that there should be no shame. It is not your fault. And it's okay to remember your baby, and it's okay to not be embarrassed or ashamed of what you went through. So that's number one, very important thing that I've learned. Number two, for those that are supporting, I think like this is, a preschool podcast, and I think about my son's school, and how they rallied around me. And oftentimes when people are going through like grieving, we ask, what can I do? But I was so overwhelmed after I lost my daughter that I didn't even know what I needed. And the school actually organized meals for me. And since then, I've had 2 other children. I have a daughter and another son, and people have also done meals for me then. But the simple act of meals was incredible. So for those of you who are like directors or teachers and are thinking, how can I, if I have a student's family that's going through this, how can I help? Organizing meals is just one less thing that as a mom, I didn't have to think about. Taking my son on a play date, and it wasn't a matter of, hey, do you want me to do this? I had a mom say, I'm picking your son up at this time. If you don't have him ready, it's okay. I'll get him ready. But we're gonna go play at the playground for a couple of hours. That was super, super helpful. And then the third thing, I was blessed with 2 children after I had my loss. And I know not everyone experiences that, but if you do experience that, please know that there is a high probability that you will have postpartum anxiety and postpartum depression after. And that was not on my radar. And I kept it a secret from the family for a long time that I had postpartum anxiety. I couldn't leave the house without my husband. It impacted our business that we owned. And because he would have to go hours away, and I could not have him leave. And I think if I would have understood what postpartum depression and postpartum anxiety was, I could have got the help that I needed. And my healing would have happened sooner. Um, Again, those are just 3 things that I just really want to share with people. So how you can help, know that postpartum anxiety and postpartum depression are real. And even I never struggled with anything like that before. And then just, what was the first thing I mentioned?
Community.
Yeah, community. Yeah, thank you.
If someone is going through something really hard around you, it's easy to say, I'm praying for you, or how can I help?
Yeah.
But actually sending a meal.
Right.
Taking a sibling to the park.
Right.
Actually stepping in and action. But meals are one of the easiest. But they're such a gift. And I just did a podcast show about my cancer. I had meals delivered for 10 weeks straight, 3 days a week.
Yeah.
And they're helpful.
Yeah.
And they're such a simple but such an impactful gift.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And I think that just the key is that when you're in a situation like that, you don't know what you need. So as another mom, think like, oh, I would really find this helpful, and just do it.
Yeah. It's always hard because as moms, we give to everybody else. We're like the givers. So it's really hard to take that back seat and be the receiver.
Right. Yeah.
But it's okay, because it's how I think of it. Everything comes in cycles. Because one day, as we give to others, because you would make a meal on a heartbeat.
Right.
I've made multiple meals for people. Because one day the script will be flipped.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And you're going to need those meals.
Definitely.
So it's okay to be on the receiving side and say, I'm not okay. I need help.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely.
Well, thank you.
Yeah. Thank you for having me. And thank you everyone for listening.
Yeah, your story, I know, is going to touch a lot of people's life. So thank you.
Thank you.